Hello and welcome to the Grid Irn-Cru, an American football podcast made in Scotland by NFL lovers. You are listening to the first in our series of Division Preview Cruise. And let's be honest, folks, there was really no place to start other than with the premium, the premier, the best division in all of football, and that is the AFC North. I, of course, am your host, Brian. Come at me, Donlin. Yes, I have changed my moniker because I've decided this season there's no more being nice about my takes, and I'm just going to tell you exactly what I think about your favourite players. Now, remember, everybody, like, subscribe, follow the crew. You can find us on X, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, and we are wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple Music, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the whole kit and caboodle. Now, we have got a full panel tonight, and everybody in the North is represented, which unfortunately means that I need to share the airwaves with some less than savoury sorts, although I'm fairly certain they're saying and thinking the same about me. So, first, we've had to pull him out now. Now, guys, I put thought into some of these puns, by the way, so brace yourselves. We had to pull him out of his roost to join our flock tonight. He's came from the UK Ravens. It's Mikey Brown. Mikey, how are you, sir? Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm in that stasis since like in that period where you're in between football seasons, and tonight with the Hall of Fame game, you're like, oh, we should be getting excited because it's starting, but I'm still not quite up there with where the excitement's peaking. So, but I mean, we've soon got John Harbaugh's lost pre-season record that he needs to get back. So let's go. So
it's always funny when you get to the Hall of Fame game. We were in it last year. Hall of Fame game where I can watch the reserves.
Yes. I think that folk are just treating it as a extra pre-season now. Is like, yeah, it becomes less of a spectacle, doesn't it? So
I think that's fair to say. Now. Yep. Moving on, when we ask who day, we all know there is really only one answer. It is the biggest Bengal in Edmonton. Who knew Tigers could live that far north, by the way?
Hey,
Stu,
hello. How are you all doing? By the way, I have met at least 3 other Bengals fans up here now. So Edmonton is not just the domain of Patriots, Packers, Vikings, and Seattle Seahawks fans, because that's what we see most of up here. But yeah, so there's a few other Bengals fans up here, so we're planning on maybe getting together to watch a game or two this season. So that should be fun. It won't be me and my Todd.
Like that does sound lovely for you, Stu, but I'm a bit disappointed because I thought you were about to say that you've met like 3 Bengal Tigers just like roaming around Edmonton out for a walk or something like that.
We actually have 2 at the zoo, so yeah, I've seen those.
There you go.
Not roaming the streets.
And well, he's just tibbled himself down before joining us tonight. We've got Jimmy, and he's actually had to move for his Wi-Fi, so his terrible tibble's no longer in the background of the shot, which makes me feel a little bit safer. Now, some of you may know Jimmy from the Gaelic Gridiron platform. He talks Steelers enough with the fine folks over in Steelers Island. So we thought who better to bring in to illuminate us about all things Pittsburgh. Jimmy, how are you doing tonight, mate?
I appreciate the offer, lads, for having me on. I'll always jump at the opportunity to talk Steelers football, and I'm looking forward to getting into our division rivalry conversations. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks very much.
Well, rivalry is the word. And it's this is one of the ones where particularly Steelers fans, like, how much would you give to just go back 5 years when there really wasn't a division rivalry? It was just the Steelers leathering folk year in, year out.
Yeah. The good old days are far we us, and to be honest with you, I think it'll be a while yet before we get back to the lofty heights where we were before. But we keep optimistic. Things I think will be a bit brighter this year than they were last year. We actually have some decent quarterbacks now, and the Steelers have put the pieces in place to kind of to bring them along. So it's going to be a very interesting season anyway. See what's ahead.
Particularly when your 2 quarterbacks have a scrap on the field. And it was anybody else like me really disappointed when that story turned out to be a hoax.
Yeah.
So it brought yesterday when we had the tales that Justin Fields was winding up Russ, and Russ swung a slap at him. and then it wasn't. The D-line just got a late hit on him and the O-line stepped up for him, and it was all very boring. Thought we were getting drama out of Pittsburgh of all places.
I don't think you can really read too much into these training camp storylines, because every beat writer in Pittsburgh and in America is trying to sell copy right now. So we'll always take these lines with a bit of salt.
Well, it could be worse. I mean, the story before that story was that Lamar had missed more practices because he was a dodgy tummy again, and it's like, so it's like, has he got a chronic problem with what he eats? And you're like, yeah, just let the guys get on with it. So
he's not a chronic problem what he eats. He's got a chronic, like, I don't know, he's got a deal with Imodium. He's sponsored by the fine folks at Gaviscon.
Yeah,
that's all this is.
I don't care. Just give him what he needs and let him do what he does. So.
We're definitely in the slow season part of the year when we're getting stories about is Lamar maybe sick or not.
Yeah,
he's missed a practice once.
I know. I mean, they don't. I mean, they focus on the likes of that, and then even you're talking about the Steelers fighting. I know this is AFC North, but when you see the other divisions with star wide receivers fighting with quarterbacks and arguing that, you're like, yeah, it's silly season in reporting world.
Yeah,
so.
Football's back, baby. Football's back.
Thank God.
Thank God, indeed. Right. Okay, we are going to get into it. So what we are going to be doing tonight, everybody, we are going to go around each of the teams in the division. We are going to start in Baltimore, then we're going to travel our way to Cincinnati. I will bring you to Cleveland, and then we will round things off in Pittsburgh. For those who haven't spotted my subtle planning, it is indeed the alphabet. We're gonna have a wee think about how last season ended, what the big team changes, player personnel, coaching, anything and everything we want to bring up. And of course, we are going to be thinking of what lies ahead. What are we really looking at? And we're going to be looking at some of the stuff we have been getting at a training camp that isn't clearly complete mince. It's actually stuff that's probably worth thinking about. So, as I said, we are going to start with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, for the sake of reminding everybody listening, last year, AFC North finished with Ravens on top. They finished with a 13-4 record. They were followed up by the Browns with 11-6. The Steelers somehow went 10-7. And I'm going to be honest, Jimmy, that still doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, I know. Let's not talk about that.
I mean, you can explain how that happened later. And then, yes, bringing up the rear, Cincy, who, to be fair, even with the issues that Cincy had, still managed an exceedingly credible 9-8 finish in the year. So,
do we count the Browns getting 11-6 when really it was Joe Flacco? And does that count? Oh,
Flacco,
yeah.
QB1. I'm still devastated that we haven't retained Joe Flacco's services. There will be more about that later, I can assure you. I have many thoughts on the Browns quarterback situation.
Yeah. Mike, it's probably not a good idea to get Brian going because the NFL 100 list.
I see that.
No, we are not talking NFL 100. We are not. Me and Stu, this is the one. Well, like, people worry about the group chat getting leaked. Me and Stu worry about our one-to-one chat getting leaked because our thoughts on the NFL 100 are pointed.
Well, yeah. Joe
Flacco just missing out the top 100, though. That was a sore point for Brian. He was very disappointed.
Well, it could be worse because the whole last year was Tucker and the kicker in it and all that, and if we get down now and we've not had any of that, there'll be an outcry from us. So, yeah, we'll wait and see.
Sorry, always remember, Aaron Rodgers made it after playing 4 snaps. Anyway, right, so...
Okay, what I didn't realise, but he's in the 90s. Like, what? He played 4 snaps.
Right, we're moving on. We're actually going to talk about the North. Mikey, kick us off, mate. So what was your... I suppose, start this off. What are your... Very briefly, what was your big reflections in last year? Because I don't think MD would say that was much less than a really successful year for you.
Actually, the taste that's in our mouth for a lot of our fans is it was once again we failed to deliver what our potential was, and unfortunately for us, it's the second time in 5 years or so where we've actually just head and shoulders look like the best team in football, which is a really uneasy feeling. And when you do that and you think, when are the wheels coming off? Because you just know. And then when you see a Kansas City or you see another team rolling in the Patriots and all, and you're like, this has just got to happen, isn't it? And the crazy thing for us was the 4 games that we lost last year in the normal season. I mean, the Steelers beat us twice. It's kind of we look at it. The other 2 games were actually we cost it ourselves. So when we then get to the playoffs, and then it's like we have this kind of brain fart where we just go against what we are good at, and every single Ravens fans will probably tell you it's like that balance in the KC game. And there's a lot of factors that when you look at it and how we ended up losing the championship game, we had home field advantage and everything. It was for a lot of us who went over and came back for games and that, we kind of thought we were rolling all the way to Super Bowl, and it was a little bit like just you know that deflation you get when you just realise. That being said, it was a really good season. A lot of really positive things, breakouts for certain players who came good and all that. And we have to look at that in the positives. Lamar was just doing Lamar things again, which just seemed to be good. And as I said, there was players that just, it looked like everything aligned. We picked up players and undrafted, like who were sitting on the couch, who just end up become like Clowney and Calvin Noy, and and Madabiki just had a breakout year, and it was great for us because defensively we were the Ravens, which was what we expect normally from AFC North football, is just hard hitting defense.
Yes.
Who was that rookie tight end who picked up as well? I think he's a rookie tight end. His name evades me, but he was absolutely like you can already see that he was becoming. Yeah,
So we had Isaiah Likely, yeah. So
yeah.
And I mean that was Andrews goes down early in the season, and you think he's the comfort blanket. I don't care what anybody says about tight ends in the league, but when Andrews is fit, he's up there with the guys that get named in the top echelons of tight ends.
Top three tight ends.
And so when he went down, and we thought, oh, what's our identity? And we had Bateman, and we had a rookie in Flowers, and we thought, can he be good? Because other wide receivers were picked before him, but the kid came out and just balled. He was electric, and Likely was just. There was an 8-game stretch where Likely he was just phenomenal. He was trucking people, and the key thing with him, and you watch him in any of his games, is his yards after the catch is phenomenal. He just seems to grab the ball, turn, and just make space. So there was loads of positives in the season. There definitely was.
So a season with ups and downs, I think, is maybe fair to say.
Yeah,
the season where most people, for the outside looking in, would look at it and go, "Yeah, look at that, 13-4, made it all the way to the championship game, brilliant." And then you lose the championship game. Casey, who go on and win the ring, to be fair. But that does leave a sore taste. It leaves a bitter taste in the back of the throat. You then look at what's happened over your off season, who's left, who's came in, what are the big bits that you're looking at thinking that's where some changes are coming from players maybe that have went on to pastures new, into players that you brought in, be it the draft, be it free agents? What are the big points that you're looking at?
The big thing that we had is we had 2 or 3 games in the stretch at Christmas where we peaked. Christmas Day and 49ers, we were peaked, and our offensive line was actually, although it was slightly makeshift, it just came good. Big change that we've had this year is we lost basically our starting guards. They walked for free. They've went to the Baltimore Jets. I mean the New York Jets kind of thing. So they're over there. So our offensive line has taken a massive rebuild. Now we've addressed that slightly. We've brought in a guy in the draft and right guard, and he has all the potential. Although he's a kind of a right tackle, Although he's a right tackle, at college he played for left-handed QB, so there's a lot of feeling that
playing that blind side.
So there's a lot of feeling that essentially Ronnie Stanley came back from a bad injury and showed glimpses of being the Ronnie Stanley, but he's still not there. So if he comes better, we have this new guy, and then ultimately, if Ronnie doesn't, there's an ability to do the transition. So the offensive line needs a little bit of work. I'm not as worried as some people, because the big change that everybody in the wrecking ball that we've ended up picking up is Derrick Henry. So when you have an offensive line and you have Lamar and you have Henry on one side and you've got Pat Ricard on the other, it's pick your poison. And
this
you will
really
be like,
makes me sad as a Browns fan to listen to. How do you defend this?
So when you have that behind the offensive line, but then you have an Andrews who's fit, then you have a Zay Flowers, and then you have a Bateman. You sell yourself, and then you will get picked off. And ultimately, we've all watched it. Lamar buys himself time. Some of the best plays that he's ever made has been where he's bought himself 8-9 seconds and bang. And then you go, how did he do that? So there's been losses on that offensive side, but I think we'll be okay. Big thing that we have, massive loss, and most Ravens fans will say this, is we lost Mike McDaniels. Sorry, I say Mike McDaniels there because of the whole. If you've not seen it, the Rams, Sean McVay done a quote. His friend Mike McDaniels, and he's said the wrong name. Mike McDonald went to Seattle as the head coach. Mike was a defensive genius. The pressures, schemes, and everything he was able to do with that defense that we had was just great last year. So there's a little bit of a worry that we've lost Clowney, big production last year. We managed to retain Kelvin Noy, which is good for us. We re-signed Madubuike, which is phenomenal for us. And then we've kept kind of that spine of the Roquan and then Kyle Hamilton. And that through the centre is great for us. We've added a little bit of depth in the corners, but we did lose the Bash Brothers Wrecking Ball and Roquan's best partner in PQ, which does pain me because I have plenty of t-shirts with PQ, and now seeing him wearing a Steelers, it's just like, I get shivers thinking about it just now. But yeah,
I couldn't believe that happened when I saw that news breaking. I was like, "There's no way we picked up the Ravens' best linebacker. How did that happen?"
Yeah, I'd be delighted to hear that.
The fact that we managed to get Roquan for basically the draft capital that we did, and Roquan is just there. I mean, Jimmy, I don't know if you remember the last game of the season, but Trenton Simpson, our rookie, came on inside linebacker, and Trenton's just been there's a lot of high hopes for him, and him sitting alongside. He's one of these linebackers that's 100 mile an hour, and I think he actually might be a little bit of a better complement to Roquan than PQ, which is not a slight on PQ, because his last 2-3 years at the Ravens, he just went like that, and he earned his money, and credit to the guy. So
an interesting one then with it, because you're obviously talking about your changes in coaching at DC and all the rest of it. So you've got Zach Oren, who's Ravens more or less through and through.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, played with the Ravens 2014 to 16, then came to you guys as a defensive analyst. Had a wee jolly over to Jacksonville as their outside linebackers coach. Then he came back to Baltimore as your linebackers coach for a couple of years, and now he's been promoted up to DC.
So if you ever look into the depths of the way that the Ravens coaching tree always works, and even Mike McDonald done the same. He went to Michigan. He got a loaner to Michigan, then he comes back. The Ravens are very good at bringing guys on when they're younger, and putting them out to pasture, and then bringing them back when they say, right, okay, let's see what you can do. Zach Orr was arguably the last couple of seasons before he got injured. It was devastating. He was just on a trajectory as a undrafted free agent that he was going places. But the mentality that he's had, and even for being somebody as young as he is, that the players seem to respect him. And even in Mike McDonald's defense, Zach Orr was kind of listened to, and he was that. And the way the players have bought into him is good. But I mean, it's like anything in the world. He's a new coordinator. it's his first big job. Is that going to be? I mean, as much as it is, but when Joey Burrow starts throwing dimes into players and that, and we don't have the right coverage, is our fans going to like it? It's that sort of thing where
I wouldn't worry too much. You only need to cope with about 3 Burrow passes a year, then he'll get hurt again.
So, but there is that. It's the intrepidation of he's new. How do we deal with it? And is it going to? There's 100%. I mean, the number one categories and the sacks and all that and everything, fumbles and turnovers we had from that's got to drop off. It's natural. But the thing that sticks out is the players make that defense. And when you look at people like we'll have healthy cornerbacks, we've got basically a stud and a safety that it was a steal in the draft when we picked him up with Kyle Hamilton. There's just the pieces are there, and it's just making sure that they get the right kind of schemes. So, and I actually don't think the defense will change that much. It's just it'll look a little bit different.
Nah, I've decided your defense is awful this year. By the way, as well known. I have in my position as Oracle of all things, I have decided that Baltimore have been too good defensively for too long. As such, it is now only fair that you spend a year having an utter. Think the Browns defense from 2020. Right?
No.
Like the 2020 Browns, right? That's the defense you have to look forward to, okay? You're welcome.
Right. Yeah.
What are you doing there, Brian? Raining on a parade. Right. Before we move on and we move over to Cincinnati.
The one thing I was just waiting to say, obviously on our defense loss as well. We mentioned about PQ going to Steelers. We lost one of our best safeties last year in Geno Stone, who went to the Bengals as well, and he's another one where he played well enough to earn his money, and credit to the dude, he's went there. And the weird thing is this off season, some of the Ravens players who peaked last year and were good have all stayed in the division, so it'll be nice and entertaining when we all meet each other. And it's like
I was going to say that's one of my things, Mike. With the FC North, I find especially on the defensive side of the ball, we're quite incestuous.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
We have Fulton, who's been with us for years, like ex-Steeler.
Well, we have Arthur Mollett plays for us, who was at Steelers, and he's ended up being a great pickup.
Mike Hilton is floating around the AFC North as well somewhere. I think still Steelers blitzing corner. He might be is he with the Bengals now possibly?
Yeah, Hilton's like still he's our main nickelback. Like he's that veteran guy, and I mean he was
fantastic.
We'll get to that. We'll see less, or I'll get to talking about it. But I suspect he'll maybe see a few less snaps this year. But he's such just a good resource to have around, like as that veteran presence that's going to help bring on you guys. So
I do think as well. There's a lot of players that see once they get in that AFC North that even some of the players who have played elsewhere, when they get to the AFC North, they're like, no, this is where you want to play. I mean,
defense especially, like good coaches, and that's the one thing you can say for all teams. Defensively, we might have struggled last year, but I would still say Lou is a decent defensive coach and a coordinator. So I'd expect us to get bounce back a bit. But anyway, Brian, I'll let you do the intro before I launch in and start.
Yeah, I know. I'm cutting Stu off. I've learned for having Stu in the pod all these things. Right. Before we move on, and I foolishly let Stu talk. I've got a three-headed question for you, Mikey, to round this wee bit off. When you look ahead at the season, what is the one game, the run of games? When you look at the Ravens schedule, what are your highlights? I was going to say is it. I'm not going to say is it, because there's a really obvious thing as far as I see it on the schedule that if I was a Ravens fan, I know that there's a particular fixture that would have my backup. Now, but we are, for the sake of everybody, we are removing divisional fixtures from these options, because we all know the divisional games matter. At the end of the day, you lose enough of your divisional games, you win enough of them, you're gold. When you look at the rest of the Ravens slate, what gets your eye?
It's really, 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 really. I know what you're thinking, but it's really, really hard to ignore that the opening game of the season officially is at Arrowhead. Now, the weird thing about it, we've had a lot of discussions in our chats about this, is it matters to some people, but actually it's first game of the season. Everybody knows, with the Bengals fans in particular, know that your start of the season means nothing. You can go and have rubbish starts, but you obviously want to come out and set a tone.
Yes.
The fact that it's prime time, the fact that it's just any primetime game, you want to be able to put on a show with the top commentators. You don't get the ones that don't seem to know anything and all that. It's like you get it. So that sticks out as kickoff game. We've been really funny in our fixtures this year because we kind of have a decent run of fixtures. We've got a really late bye in week 14 this year, which
very late.
We'll wait and see how that works. But the rubbish thing about just before the bye, and no, we're not saying divisions, but we do a Thursday night Bengals, Saturday or Sunday, Steelers, and then we travel quite a bit in that kind of short period.
Yeah.
And it's weird because we end up with, I know it's not prime time, but we end up with really weird fixtures. I mean, we're playing on a Saturday against the Steelers this year, but the one that sticks out for everybody, I would probably say is the kickoff game against the Chiefs. And there's a worry with me because I think when we play them third week or fourth week in the season, players have found their feet a little bit, and you get on. Playing them first game of the season, it's like, what do you expect? Because in a preseason,
you've got to. For me, it was the obvious game. Well, clearly, it wasn't going to be your travel to the Giants.
No.
It's got to be the big one of the season. It is the repeat of the championship game where you're so close but yet so far. And yeah, we all know it's one game. It's one game of the year, but what a game! What a way to open your season. Our last bit, Mikey, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to need to shift this on.
Cool.
We always like to shine a light and to put you in the spot a wee bit and to ask you for two players for your team that you think are going to be the man who's going to crush it this year, the man who's going to step up and be the Ravens' star player for the year, and then who do you think is going to be a breakout baller? Who do you think is going to not necessarily completely come out of nowhere, but make that big step in their career and really shows what they're all about as a Raven this year? So who have you got, mate?
The list is actually, it's weird because unfortunately I normally am struggling with like, well, who could it be? But this year I'm kind of optimistic because I've got two or three for each skill, which is weird, and relatively young players. But I mean, the crush it player is obviously easy. Everybody's like, Lamar's just Lamar. Lamar has dropped his weight from the heavier set Lamar that he was last year. He's slimmed back down because there was a criticism last year that he lost a bit of his pace. I don't think that was true, but he seemed to not be able to electrically break away from people like he normally does. But I mean, when you compare that to some of the other people, it's like, yeah, he's quarterback. So he is the guy. But I mean, in terms of crushing it, I mentioned him earlier, but I think Kyle Hamilton is going to be one of these players who is transitionally, he sets a tone. He gets called as a Swiss Army knife at the back. He plays so many different positions, and I'm super excited to see how Kyle Hamilton goes in terms of crushing it this year, because I think he will. I think he'll just excel. And then the kind of breakout player that we have, I mentioned them earlier, was the replacement for PQ and Trenton Simpson. I think Trenton is just, as I said, he's smash mouth, 100 mile an hour. That's what you want from an inside linebacker in the AFC North. It's like,
be smash mouth football. We are the home of it.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot to look forward to. The Ravens. We're going to shift on. We're going to move our way over. We're going to go to the wonderful world of Cincinnati. Stu, it was an injury-riddled season. At the end of the day, I don't think it's a shocker for anybody to say that was the story of Cincinnati's year last year. Very creditable 9-8 record, particularly when you think about you had Burrow for it wasn't even that you had Burrow or you didn't have Burrow. When he was playing, he was obviously hurt. He played for too long, hurt. There really should have been a decision made there early. To be fair to Jake Browning, when he stepped in, he was highly creditable. You know what I mean? You can't really slag him too much. But he's no Joe Burrow. So when you are kind of thinking, maybe not so much, but thinking about last season, I suppose, is we'll look ahead. When you're looking at what's changed this year that makes you look at what the Bengals have got in front of them, and you think, right, these are the big changes. Here's who's left. Here's who's in. What are your thoughts about how your roster's shaping up for the year, mate?
Well, I mean, I guess probably the easiest place to start, or the best place to start, is with what Mike was talking about before, with Mr. Geno Stone, and also with the return of the guy whose jersey I'm wearing right now, Von Bell, who's came back, because I believe we were number one, or maybe number two, but definitely in the bottom two teams in the league for giving up most yardage and most explosive plays. Like, you know, at the back end, like those kind of like long plays that are going towards our safeties. Like, we really struggled there, and you know, that's no real kind of slight on Jordan Battle, who was one of our first round draft picks in a previous year. He came in, and then we also had the lad that was from LA who we let go in the summer there from the Rams. I just forgot his name briefly, but he didn't work out. Like, again, no slight on him, solid player, but he just didn't quite fit the system that Lou likes to run, where we have our safeties usually step up and stop the run game. He just didn't really kind of fit into that role, and we had too many kind of blown coverages. So for me this year, I think bringing in a guy like Geno Stone and bringing back Von Bell, who, yes, he might be a year older and all that, and didn't have the best year at Carolina, who did have a good year in Carolina, I think that's going to make a huge difference just in terms of the back end. We're now going to be giving up less of those over-the-top 30-yard, 40-yard plays that end in touchdowns or first downs in the red zone. That's one end. The other kind of place I think we've really improved, and remains to be seen, is at running back. As much as I loved Mr. Mixon, he's definitely not looked
one
like
game a year. Or one game a year. Joe Mixon is always electric. Which game though?
I think we can all agree, like, Joe Mixon, he's great as that kind of release valve, like catching the ball, maybe getting your first down, getting you 6 yards or something like that, catching the ball. But like, as a put the head down, run between the tackles, explosive runner, he just seemed to have lost like half a yard of pace, and he's slowing down as time kind of went on. I'm sure he'll do fine in Houston, because he's definitely better than what they had there. But for me, I think bringing in Zach Moss on
to be fair, I'm better than what Houston had at running back last year.
That's true. But for me, like, Zach Moss, I really like. He's not the flashiest guy, but he's definitely someone that can get you that extra yard after the tackle. He's got good, like, straight ahead speed. And then we have Mr. Canada, Chase Brown, as well, kind of thing, who, you speak of injuries, he was injured for a lot of the season, but then when he did get in towards the end of the year, he showed flashes, and it looks like he could be that really good complementary running back and actually give us something behind the starter. Because guys like Chris,
I'm gonna pitch at you here, because we were talking about this off air, but a lot of the training camp chat is training camp chat. Some of it's interesting, some of it's men's, blah blah blah. The chat that I have been hearing out of Bengals camp is that Zach Moss might not be RB1. That Chase Brown has been looking good. He's been looking healthy. And that he's been handling everything that the Bengals coaching team have been throwing at him, and he's been looking good. I'm not certain that Zach Moss is going to step in to be a clear-cut RB1 in that room.
Brian, you're ruining my fantasy draft tactics for the upcoming draft, because as much as I'm talking up Chase Brown here a bit, I was trying to keep that bit of information down low because I didn't want him to.
I don't make the news. I just report the news, mate. I don't make it. I report
it. The thing with that is, I think you're right, because when we obviously lost running backs, and when Zach Moss was available, I was like, well, he could be a tidy pickup, but when you have players that just start flashing, I mean, we had Keaton Mitchell last year, and he got injured. But if you run with a hot hand when it comes to the running backs, and if he's doing it, then you do it. So yeah,
it's almost a similar situation to what Pittsburgh have with the two-headed monster of Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. And before, I remember before the Steelers podcast when it launched in preseason last year, and people were asking me for my bold predictions, and I said Jaylen Warren has a breakout season, and look what happened. I would have actually said that he was the better running back out of the two last year, because he wants it more, I think, and that gives a great kind of competition breeds success. So if he can spur on Najee Harris to be a better running back, then two running backs are better than one, I think. Two good running backs.
Just say, in behalf of all fantasy players everywhere, I'm going to just pick one. Because honestly, you try and draft a Steelers running back in fantasy and it's torture. But anyway, no more Steelers chat. We'll come to the Steelers.
One thing I'll say on that running backs thing, though, I would say, like, to be a bit of a love fest here, I'd say if Chase Brown can stay healthy and it works out, because I have faith that Zach Moss, like, at least is that, like, for a couple of downs, he can be your Basham guy and he'll do it pretty well, just doing it in the coast. I would say that all four of our teams, again, we'll see what happened with Foreman today. We'll also probably get to that news too for the Browns. But I would say all four of our teams are fairly well set up at running back, and that's something that could be a strength for us all this year.
Yeah.
Other strengths for the Bengals, though, and one thing I've enjoyed kind of watching in training camp, and again, asterisk training camp chat, Yoshivas, who, like, great, like, kind of, late round pick a couple of years ago now in the draft. And he showed flashes again last year, mainly in special teams, but he got in the odd snap. He's, like, just been lights out good in training camp so far, like, with Chase, who's, like, whispering, hold it out, because he's not actually been practicing so far in training camp, but we all know he's going to turn up. This is all the preludes to the contract chat. But Yoshivas next to T. Higgins, he's not really looked that far off him. And again, how much of that is Yoshivas is just gunning it hard. He's got a point to make. He really wants to make the team. He's outperforming Orton. He's outperforming Brent Norwin, like, all with Charlie Jones, like, who was drafted above him. Nothing as well. And it looks like Yoshivas is ate, someone's lunch. And right now, despite never playing slot until training camp this year, right now I would say he's the favourite to take Tyler Boyd's spot. And
that is a hot take.
But maybe we're okay.
That is a hot take. I like Yoshivas. You are a complete Yoshivas truther. It must be said, full disclosure to everybody listening, that this is not when Stu has started drinking the Yoshivas juice. He's been on this for a wee while now. But again, you look at potent passing offenses, and we always assume that health whenever we can. So you assume that Joe Burrow is gonna play all year. He's going to play at the level that he's used to playing at. He's a quarterback that can sustain multiple top passing threats. So there really is there is a world where Yoshivas is a real serious threat, and we all know. Right, Stu, remind me, because Higgins' contract situation is dicey, and he's probably away next year if I'm right.
Yeah, so. I think we can't make the money. I mean, it's playing out exactly the way we all thought it would last season when this all started kind of rumbling.
You never know with the way the cap's going and the way that certain people have dealt their QBs early enough that the way that you see some of the deals that are going now, you're glad we got them early. But I mean, yeah, I think Higgins is going to be a casualty because who do you want to keep really? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's that thing of, really it comes down to, can we get a Chase done early enough next summer for T to still be around, and then get a deal done with him as well. So it's also down to, like, with T has a lesser year, because he's been injured a few times now as well. So that's obviously a mark against, because rumours were he was looking for 30 to 35 million.
Yeah.
Even for me, I love T Higgins, but I was kind of like, it seems a bit on the high side, given what we've seen from him so far, which, he's had those massive games in the playoffs where he's put up, like in the Super Bowl, he had 2 touchdowns, I think, and he had the championship game against the Chiefs as well, where he was like 150 odd yards too, so he can perform, and he is that big bodied target, but he now has the injury question mark, and then he's, when Chase has been out, he does perform as well, so I can see his point. I can see on one hand, yes, he wants this money, but to me, I'm kind of still going, I think you're more a $25 million receiver or a 20, where he is on the tag, but I don't know if he's justified the 5 million that he's seeking.
The big thing is, if you lose him, you probably just don't want to lose him to one of our teams.
Who in the north?
It's the Bengals that go between the teams, so we might be all right.
I enjoy the idea that he doesn't actually get to choose. It's just our 3 names in a hat. It's like, oh, it could be like Harry Potter. It's a sorting hat. He just gets that plonked on him. Pittsburgh. That was terrible. Pittsburgh don't need help with getting wide receivers. You do it in the draft often enough. Right, okay. So when you're thinking then about your kind of when you look at your schedule, when you're looking at the year for Cincinnati, you have been blessed, and it's a bit of a weird way of putting it. But because you did come fourth in the division last year, it does hand you what, and again, air quotes, asterisks, he's come out here. Your strength of schedule is the weakest of everybody in the division. Because you were fourth last year, means you get an easier ride, theoretically, this year. But we've all seen how that worked last year when people were handed the Texans as an easy ride. Yeah, we've all seen how that worked out. But when you look at it, what are the games that you look at? Not as the easy rides. You know, I don't want to hear any chat about how you get to play the Panthers in week 4. But what are the games that really get you excited looking ahead?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Brian, the Panthers do get me excited because if Chuba is there, like, you know how much I love Chuba. He's actually his family lives just like 10 minutes that way from my house because he's an Edmonton or Sherwood Park kid kind of thing. So anyway, not the Panthers though, as much as I do like Chuba.
Not the Panthers.
No, like for me, probably similar. The Ravens schedule, week 2, we're playing in Arrowhead against the Chiefs. That's probably the one that if we're going outside the division, like that's the one that jumps out as me as probably being the most exciting. And then
I mean, how did the Super Bowl winners get 2 home games to kick off the season? I mean,
that's my question. Because when you were talking, I was going, "What the hell are we playing them in Arrowhead again as well?"
I can explain that because I was in the script writers meeting. And we decided to.
So, and also, we have the problem where the Bengals are playing the Chiefs week 2. So, if the Ravens beat them up week 1, they're going to come in really mad to week 2. So, that might be a problem. So, maybe we actually want you guys to lie down and, you know, lose.
And they're a little bit like this when they come in and then you can surprise them. But
But no, apart from that, though, I'd say probably. Even though they've got a lot of changes, or they've changed their team a lot in the postseason, week 8 we're at home against the Eagles. Like I think playing always a fun time kind of thing. So it's always a good measuring stick. And we're kind of pretty much halfway through the year then. So I think that'll be a good measuring stick in terms of have we actually got a shot at making the playoffs? Have we got a shot at being contenders? Because they should still be one of the better teams from the NFC. This season, so yeah, I'll take the Eagles over the Chiefs as being the.
Good. We like to spread it a bit here on the Grid Irn-Cru. We don't want to be all saying it. Although what I will say, there is absolutely a universe where the Chiefs are 0-2 at the start of the year. Like,
does that really matter though?
No.
Well, it's 2 games. It's 2 games.
It's no Brian or division. They'll just like.
Yeah, you do look at their division. If
the thing is,
the West is one of the least.
There's only two teams in my mind in the entire AFC who can actually stop the Chiefs, and those are the Ravens and the Bengals with a healthy Joe Burrow. There's nobody else who can actually stop Patrick Mahomes. Even if they do take a couple of losses. Who's really going to stand in their way in the AFC Championship game?
The thing with me on that as well is if say they do lose the 2, right? As we said, see later on in the season, their games will never play out exactly the same. The teams evolve, players get injured, people get signed. So you end up saying, "Oh, but they lost in week 1 or lost in week 2," and you're like, "That's irrelevant." It's like
The playbooks are like totally different by the end of the year. Or they're so deep in it by the end of the year and then the playoffs.
Because they look at it and go, "Yeah, that never worked." So, but we will. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I think they could be 0-2. I think it could.
I would love them to be 0-2, Brian. I would love them
to be 0-16, but that's
Studs coming for us now.
I know. Studs is sat at home just getting angrier and angrier. No, he loves it. He loves being the pantomime villain. But it's insane. It's the kind of stuff, as Jimmy says, I think you are right, to be fair. If for anybody that's not watched, and by now surely you need to, if anybody's not watched Netflix's quarterback, you need to get yourself sat down and watch it. And you're watching for, amongst other things, it's a fantastic show. You're watching for how Mahomes talks about Burrow. And you can tell that there really is something where Burrow is in their head.
Yeah.
It's just that bit where it's, Joe Cool. It's a thing. It really is.
Yeah.
Right. Stu, crushing it and breakout stars. Who have you got for me? I think I could possibly guess your breakout star. But who are you going with, mate?
Okay, I mean, I'll do breakout star first. So that one, I was actually looking through for this, one of them being Chase Brown, but on the other side of the ball on defence, and I think I'm going to pick him above here because really I think this guy's going to be key to how our year goes because really we need to be better on the defensive end. Breakout guy, I'm hoping I can count him because he did play most of last year, but I'm still going to say it's a breakout for I'm going to go DJ Turner. I have him kind of winning out in that cornerback role out of camp. Mr. Patrick's
Nice.
And that, we need to have that, strong quarterback to figure that side. I think we're running rookies or relative rookies, I think. So that's something. I'm going with him as being the breakout guy and having a great. For crushing it.
Who's going to crush it, mate?
I'm going for the absolute obvious one, and it's more a wing and a prayer here. Joe Burrow.
Yes. I like an obvious one for crushing it.
Does he get comeback player of the year?
I think so. I think he gets the extra weight in the piano lessons to get his rock back in action. I think that's good enough to see Joe Burrow through.
Let's not forget his new, more aerodynamic haircut.
That as well. The Cody Rhodes.
I lightens up a room.
Finish his story. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
So you're tipping right here that Joe's going to take you all the way and finish the story and actually win a Super Bowl.
I would love the Bengals to finally win a Super Bowl, please.
I think you speak for everybody in Cincinnati when you say that. Right, okay. We're gonna bring this on. We're gonna keep it moving, guys. We're gonna bring it to my own beloved Cleveland Browns. Now, story of the season. As much as the Bengals like to pretend that they get to talk about an injury-riddled season, I am having none of it. We had 5 quarterbacks, 5 over the course of the year, and we still managed to go 11-6. We were 1 and done in the playoffs. Texans absolutely hosed us. There's a lot that we need to take from that game specifically. But the big story of our year was this kind of idea of Cleveland not being Cleveland and actually showing a bit of grit, a bit of determination, coming back from the adversity with the quarterback situation and all the rest of it. And lest we forget, the one, the only Jim Schwartz stepping in at DC and taking what is on paper an incredible defensive roster that the year prior wildly underperformed. And actually, we all remember Joe Woods as DC. And then actually bringing them on and saying, no, this is what this roster, this defensive unit is capable of. So, that was our big story. Obviously, as we all know, the Browns don't get a decent sniff at the draft until year after next. Thank you, Deshaun.
That makes all of us so happy because that has to be one of the biggest ever blunders by our front office. I mean, you could see even when he was in Houston,
I mean, you have to look at it. If it hadn't been for what the Panthers and maybe the Giants have slightly done of late, the Browns would be head and shoulders above with front office just blunders, and it's like.
Yeah. Listen, it wasn't a great day. Okay? It wasn't one of the finest.
And you're stuck with him for how long now? Still,
we have got 2 more years.
Okay,
2 more years. This is if I'm trying to do maths to add up to 3, failing really miserably. Yeah, it's a 5-year deal, fully guaranteed, as we know. Yeah, it's not great, and this is where next season is where the Haslams are going to need to start getting very creative with the black arts of cap management around. Now, I'm not sure who it is. I'm going to be very rude and mute. Used to try, so somebody's got a lot of noise in the background. So I've touched a wee mute on that. I'm very sorry, Mike. But yeah, the Haslams are going to need to do some black magic soon. We all know that's coming. But thinking about this year, Brown's moves, what's going to happen? Personnel-wise, Jerry Jeudy is big ad. He's came into his slotting in his wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. Him and Elijah Moore have got some fighting to do over that. Donta Foreman joined us. Donta Foreman, obviously, as we found out as today, as we're recording this, has picked up a pretty scary looking injury in training camp. He had to be immobilized in the field. He was flown out by helicopter to a local hospital as he took a big hit and felt pain in his neck. Obviously, we are hoping that the Browns are doing the thing they need to do and being really overly cautious, and that's it. And there's nothing else going on there. But obviously, he was an add to the team. Now that we've seen that Chubb, as we all know, Jimmy, who picked up
that's football.
Picked up his injuries. Yeah, picked up injuries against the Steelers last year. Multiple surgeries. Looks like he's the road to recovery is one he's certainly on, but there's no universe he's going to be ready for the start of the season. And I'll talk about him in a couple of minutes about where he's possibly going to come in. One of the big changes, obviously, for the Browns is bringing in Dorsey at OC. However, as much as Ken Dorsey's came in at OC, Kevin Stefanski's still doing the play calling. So he is there purely as a coaching standpoint. And yeah, Stefanski's good. Stefanski's won Coach of the Year. He's been with us for years now. We have seen what Stefanski wants to do, and I've got faith. I do have faith. Can he make some interesting choices on offense, calling plays? Yes. We have seen it multiple times where we do things from the casual observer, they don't make sense. And I think there was a lot of people hoping that Dorsey was going to take a little bit of that on, but that's not going to be the case unless it goes really badly. And the weird one, and I don't know if any of you guys have got thoughts or opinions on this. Vrabel. We have Vrabel as a job, and no one really seems to know what Mike Vrabel is doing with the Browns. He's just has a job, and he's helping in random ways. And it's awesome because Vrabel's a very talented guy. I am with a great many people. I think he was a bit hard done by. I don't think that the Titans really had good reason to bin him because they kind of dismantled that team around him and just expected him to cope. Yeah, he's been helping a lot with tight ends. I know that. Other than that, I have no idea what he does.
I was almost more surprised the Pats didn't find a way to bring him back, but I guess they really did want to kind of wash out the old regime there, and maybe he was seen as like having been part of that. Just let him walk. So yeah, I mean, to me, Vrabel seems like he's been an absolutely fantastic coach for years. So I think picking him up and having him around the Browns organization, it can only really help. He doesn't seem like a guy that has a big enough ego that if he is there, he's going to upset the apple cart. That's kind of the point I'm making as well. Like, he doesn't seem like, it's not like in Formula One where you have people fighting over control of teams and all that. He's just going to go in there and do his thing and probably be quite helpful. So,
I mean, he's definitely an experienced coach, and you could see, just from how the Titans players, when he was the head coach, they responded to him that he's clearly respected. He clearly knows his stuff. And I think the Browns, maybe with that move, are just trying to get any sort of advantage that they can. Because let's be frank, the quarterback situation is it's what it is. It's not going to get any better unless something miraculous happens this year. Brian, unfortunately, I think so. I think from that perspective, I wasn't even aware that Mike Vrabel is in that capacity, but it makes a lot of sense. I think, I think he won't be. I think before the season is out, maybe towards the end of the season, Vrabel will be in a coordinator or head coaching position. So I think we're going to see a lot of change this year if things don't go the way that teams want.
Yeah.
He ends up being a little bit of insurance, doesn't he? Which when we lost Mike, I was like, oh, please don't take Vrabel. Just too many run-ins with the Titans, and I was like, don't. And if we were taking Henry, I was like, it's just that connection we don't want. When he went there, I was like, yeah, I can see what they're doing because he's insurance for. Let's play it out. Let's play it out. He's experienced enough, and he needs to slide into a seat. He will.
Yeah.
So.
I will say I don't think there's any chance of that. I think Stefanski's as safe as coaches get in the NFL. I don't think that there's.
I don't think. I think he's more in a coordinator type.
Yeah.
I think he could go into a coordinator role and be that because I think you're right. Stefanski's unfortunately it's weird because he's kind of getting to there with a Harbaugh and Tomlin and that. It's like do you get rid of them? Because it's that looking what you're going to get.
Bring in that's better.
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly enough, we were the buddy over here. He's a big Niners fan. We were having a discussion last night about coaches in the league and over a few beers, and I'm not ashamed to admit that we were maybe grouping Tomlin in that. Is he the best head coach in the league? Because I mean, as much as I know they've not won all that much, but making the playoffs every single year, or at least going above 500 every year, that's so incredibly hard to do.
Losing records.
It doesn't matter who he has a quarterback. It can be Mason Rudolph. It can be whoever. He just seems to get it done.
Yeah. Right.
Back to the Browns.
We'll wrap up the Browns, and I'm going to bring in Jimmy to talk Steelers. For us, it's going to be an interesting year. Everything about Watson's true. All the chat. The season, as always, is going to begin and end with how effective he can be. We got away with it last year. There is no hiding for that. Teams do not succeed the way that the Browns succeeded last year, running 2 quarterbacks, never mind bloody 5. That's a fluke. It's an aberration. You're not repeating that. So we need Watson to step up. End of the day. When we look at the schedule, big kind of tasty games that we're looking for the Browns. I've got 2 in my head. One of them is a wee bit of a cop-out. I could go 15th of December when we play the Chiefs. No, we won't all just look for when we play the Chiefs. Week 1 is mine. If I'm honest, I'm excited to play Dallas. I think the Cowboys could be a really good game. They are in a big. We talk about contracts, and we're not talking Dallas contract situation. We talk contracts. They are in a big flux of contracts. They've got the 3 big tickets. That you've got Dak, you've got CD, you've got Micah. They all want paid, and they're all going. You would think they're all going to get paid. And yeah, I think that could be a cracking game. They're coming to us. Pardon me, to start the season off. I'm very, very excited about that. When it comes to players, when it comes to crushing it, when it comes to breakouts, crushing it, as much as I'm saying we need Watson to perform, I don't think Watson's going to crush it. Me and Stu have had this conversation millions of times. The Browns don't need Watson to be Pete Houston Texans Watson. We need Watson to be functional. We need him to be an average or slightly above average starting quarterback. We can get that. I actually believe we can succeed. Who we need to crush it is the man who has no issue crushing people. He adds them to his graveyard every single year. It is your defensive player of the year. This is great. Jimmy's getting angrier and angrier. It is Myles Garrett. And he is. He does. He crushes it every single year. He's incredible. He gets double teamed at a hilarious rate, and he still succeeds. It's got to be him to crush it for me. Breakout start, and this is where I'm glad I'm seated for this. And Browns fans listening, you should sit down as well. Jerome Ford, because I'm sorry, folks. Chubb's going to be back. Chubb will be back. I just don't see him coming back as Chubb. I don't see him being as effective. He's had 2-3 meaty knee operations now. So he's at least 2. I think he had one very, very early stages of his career that would make it 3. He's going to come back. He's going to be incredible. He's going to show you what he can do. He is not, I don't think, going to come back to being that 20 touch a game back. The Browns aren't going to use him that way. We're not going to be able to. Jerome Ford showed last year that he's a capable back. He is who I can see, particularly with the potential injury to Donta Foreman that we've seen. Yes, it's early in training camp, but
I have a update on that, Brian. Foreman,
okay.
He's back with the Browns. Everything's checked out okay.
Oh,
so
good. Well, there's an excellent bit of breaking news, folks.
There you go, breaking news.
So yeah, but I'm still sticking to my guns here. Jerome Ford is the man I'm pegging for my breakout candidate for the Browns. Right. It is the last one that we're going to look at tonight, folks. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers, forever the big brother. But now, are they going to stay there? Jimmy, you've already said that you see yourselves as a wee bit of not a rebuild. That's not. I don't think rebuild's ever a word you can use with Pittsburgh.
No.
Perhaps.
Yeah. I think it's. I mean, I remember Lamar Woodley years and years ago saying, "We don't rebuild, we reload." And I think that's what the Steelers have done massively this season. I mean, I still remember seeing the news coming in that we got rid of Kenny Pickett and brought in Russell Wilson, and I nearly dropped my phone. I was like, what's going on here? What's our Omar Khan up to? So I think that was I think something drastic had to be done, and something drastic was done, and that was bringing in, Russell Wilson. He might not have the greatest couple of years with the Broncos, but I still think that he's a good option to lead us out this season. And then you have Justin Fields as the backup, and I know all sort of training camp talk comes with an asterisk, but there are rumors that Justin Fields, when he got the opportunity to run the offense, was outperforming Russell Wilson. So he better hope that calf injury heals up so he can get back on the field and reclaim pole position. But I think obviously the quarterback situation was one of the biggest things that had to change last year from last year. When you had Mason Rudolph leading you into a playoff game against the Colts, that was never going to end well. Sorry, against the Bills.
Never going to be a good day.
No, it was never going to end well. And, that said a lot about the situation in Pittsburgh, that Kenny Pickett was healthy. He came back, but Mike Tomlin chose to stick with Mason Rudolph to kind of ride the hot hand. So, and secondly, the other massive change that every single Pittsburgh Steelers fan on the planet was calling for last year was for Matt Canada to get the bag, which he did, thank God. So I think Arthur Smith, although he might not have had the best run with the Falcons, I think it's going to be. I think things are going to pick up on offense because the pieces are there. Our defense is absolutely elite. The only piece we're missing is the on the field is the quarterback, and in the booth is an offensive coordinator. So I am more optimistic this year about our offense than I was last year. Let me put it that way.
And I make no apologies for coming back to the QB situation, because it is the story in Pittsburgh in terms of the stuff. When you look at it, now obviously you're into, and it's where I find it really intriguing, because you can look at Justin Fields' career of flashes, and you've seen it in flashes because he is electric when he's on. But he's also shown that he's got big issues with ball security. He goes on when he really, really shouldn't, and he plays passes that aren't there. So you've got he's young. He's a young quarterback. He makes young quarterback mistakes. You've then got Russ. Russ has got a ring. Russ has got a career behind him that shows that he can be the QB1 for most teams in the league. But I don't think, sorry, Russ, if you're listening, I know you're an avid fan, I don't think it's unfair to say that he's in decline.
100%. 100%.
See the Steelers go.
Sorry?
Where do you want to see the Steelers go?
I want them to start Russ, but I honestly think that Fields will take over by week 3 or 4, because I think Russ will come in and he might have initial success, but I think you might find it hard to get chemistry with the receivers. I think you might find it hard to run the offense. But to me, Justin Fields is... I'm not sold on the fact that he's the quarterback of the future, because he's still young enough to be the quarterback of the future, right? He's still has that youth where he can come in and learn under Russ, who is a similar type of player, and they're both running quarterbacks. What I would have really have liked is for the Steelers to draft a quarterback last year, but after, I suppose, kind of missing on Kenny Pickett, they were never going to do that. And I think Omar Khan did a good enough job from that regard. But I think ultimately start Russ. I think Fields comes in at some point before the bye anyway. And I think the Steelers start looking towards the future just as an insurance policy and see if we can. I mean, if things go badly enough, which I don't think they will, we might be in a position to draft a quarterback early on next year, because historically the Steelers don't trade away draft picks to trade up, which that's absolutely fair enough. But I keep coming back to the point that they've built around the team. They added Troy Fatano in the draft. They added Mason McCormick as well. So our O-line is back up to the standard it should be at. We drafted a lineman last year as well. We drafted a receiver after losing Deontay Johnson. They've plugged all the gaps with talent. So now it's time to produce results, and I think Mike Tomlin might have kind of got away with it last year a little bit. But I think this is definitely going to be a prove-it year for the Steelers.
Right. Now, this is great because you've led into a point that I wanted you to lead into. This is seamless.
I'm glad he said it, because I was going to ask a question about Tomlin there just where you said it, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Brian.
No, I wasn't going to ask a question about Tomlin. I'm going to start a different tangent, mate. So, Mikey, on you go. You asked a question about Mike.
So mine was, because obviously when Canada got the heave-ho, there was people talking about pivoting from Tomlin last year.
Yeah.
And if he comes out this year and obviously coaches like he normally coaches, and then they look more like the normal Steelers, you think that last year gets forgotten about? Or do you think if they have a little bit of a rough time with it and it's not working, that noise for Tomlin comes back?
I don't think it comes back to the same extent as it did last year. Because the Steelers have shown their faith now in Tomlin and giving him that contract extension. But I do think his seat is warming up every year, because we're a franchise that expects victories, expects championships. We haven't gotten past the first round in the playoffs, and I don't know how. God knows how long. Haven't been in the title game since the.
Are disaster. You the new Bengals? Is that what's going on here? Just like hating the first round of the playoffs, like. Bounced.
Jimmy, if you want to talk about the Steelers' last playoff appearance, I will talk every play through with you if you want me.
It's an interesting thing, Jimmy, because we're the same. When Harbs just doesn't get over that hump and goes against what we're good at and doesn't run the football, and he's the head coach and he's responsible, people then go, are they the right people? Have they sat in that seat too long? And I mean, there was talk last year at one point where Harbs is winning everything with the Ravens, but we should get rid of him, and Mike McDonald should be made the head coach, and Tomlin's. But
the question is, who do you? There's no one out there that you bring in. There's no one out there that you can bring in and have that level of success immediately.
Belichick.
Yeah, I go back to what Joe and I were talking. My Niners friends, we were talking about last night. I think you would be mad to get rid of Tomlin, because I don't see anyone able to come in. And the same with the Ravens with Harbaugh. Unless the other Harbaugh somehow becomes available from the Chargers, I don't really see anybody else.
No, we don't want that. We'll beat them on the November game, and then
Chargers this year, to be honest. Like, especially if Harbaugh's in.
Well,
the LA Ravens with Harbaugh. And
I'll tell you what, the one I'm going to be nice. Uncharacteristically when I'm talking to a Steelers fan. And again, this is great. It's moments where you should be able to see mine and Stu's WhatsApp to each other. Can you stop drafting well? Like, please. Take a year off.
I mean,
honestly, we sat watching you guys draft, and every single pick, that's incredible value.
Remember my draft kind of thing that I wrote before it, where I'd kind of all I did was I compiled a whole bunch of lists and then tried to make a kind of aggregate score. And I remember as the Steelers are making their picks in the first few rounds, I'm going, they're basically about like plus 40 something, in value. picks kind of thing over the first 3 guys you drafted. And the next closest team were the Eagles, I think, and they were like
goes back to my point about Omar Khan just being let to do his thing. I mean, Broderick Jones was a fantastic pick last year. Troy Fatano, again the O-line in theory should be the best in the division, if not the conference this year. Even though there are a lot of rookies there. Inside linebacker is still a bit of a concern for me, given the slate of injuries we had last year, especially Cole Holcomb. But we plugged that gap a little bit with the addition of Peyton Wilson. So I think that's quarterback and inside linebacker would be the 2 biggest weaknesses I would see now.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to bring our little segment in the Steelers and our rundown of the AFC North somehow to a close. Same 3 questions for yourself, Jimmy, as I've asked everybody else, mate. What is, when you look at your schedule and you look ahead, what are the non-division games that you look at thinking that's the tasty one? That's the one I'm really looking forward to this year.
I think there's 3 that kind of stand out to me as being the best or the most ones I'm most looking forward to. The first is week 1 against the Falcons. Obviously, that revenge game. Arthur Smith back in Atlanta. That's going to be
really excited for that game.
That's going to be a great game. That's going to be especially if Kirk Cousins is healthy and starts. That's going to be a fantastic game. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Aside from that, I'm going to Pittsburgh for the first time in October to the Jets game. Sunday night football. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers will be healthy. First time in Heinz Field, so I'm excited for that.
Nice.
And then obviously, I'm buzzing for that. And then I think you can't not mention the Christmas Day game against the Chiefs. And I know my mother is going to kill me when I tell her that I won't be around for dinner at 6:00 in the evening because I'll be stuck to the television, hopefully getting a Christmas present of the Steelers beating Patrick Mahomes. But who knows? But I think those are going to be 3 absolutely fantastic matchups, hopefully.
I'm just loving the idea of you shouting through to your mum from another room. Just bring me a plate of turkey.
He's going to kill me. He's going to absolutely kill me. I'm actually dreading it.
I've not broke the news because we're away at the Texans on Christmas Day this year. Again, after being away at the 49ers. So last year at the 49ers was a late one. I was like, that was so. The Christmas Day games are killing.
Great, we love it. Right. Okay. Last bit then, Jimmy. Who are your 2? Who's going to crush it for the Steelers this year? Are you bold enough to pick one of the QBs? No, I am not. And who is your breakout baller? Who do you see taking the big step, mate?
I think who's going to crush it is Joey Porter Jr. I think we've only really started seeing what he's capable of. I think technically he was a first round pick. If you think about it, I think he showed flashes of his lockdown coverage abilities last year. Fairly sure he had an interception. I want to see more interceptions this year, and I think he has the potential to be one of the best cornerbacks in the league. And he's just going to keep getting better and better. So I think he stands out as like the best, or the top in my mind of crushing it. And then breakout players, there's 2. There's Nick Herbig, outside linebacker / edge. I think if he continues to learn under TJ Watt, I think he'll eventually be that other side of the line. I think he'll eventually replace Alex Highsmith, especially when you consider the trade talk there was around him for potentially as part of a package for Brandon Ayuk. And Jalen Warren, I mean, I know he kind of had his breakout season last year, but if he's not starting running back, I mean, Najee Harris has a lot of work to do to reclaim that clear-cut first round of, number 1 running backs position. So, the Steelers are absolutely stacked. We just have to start winning games now.
Well, to continue the trend about stealing players, I mean, on your back end, your defense, you've now got Anthony Everett, who we had, and then you've obviously got Deshaun Elliott, who is a bit of a smash mouth as well. So, the signs are there for a defense. I think these were like 7th or top 10 at least anyway in defense last year.
Defense is playing at an elite level, the offense just has to match it now.
Yeah, and I mean, but even in the offense, when you look at the Steelers, I mean, there's, and I'm not going to say I'm totally up to speed, but didn't they pick up like Scotty Miller, and they've got like some other like low key wide receivers who have been decent in the league for other teams.
Yeah.
That you expect sometimes some of the A players just all of a sudden just turn it on, and you're like, well, he just has the right fit, so you never know.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Don't you? Listen, Jimmy, I heard you mention the Ayuk word there. That happens, I am just going to die a bit inside. The Steelers went on yet another excellent wide receiver.
This is my thing. I mentioned it earlier about the whole T. Higgins thing, right? And the interesting thing that I worry about is because the Ayuk thing scares me, because if the Steelers get Ayuk, I'm like, oh man, that's a.
I don't think we're going to. I think at this stage we would have gotten him.
But I do think if they play about the longer game, they could be one of the teams that are in play for if Higgins is deciding, like, which would it just gives me that kind of feeling where you're like, nope, don't want it.
Right.
Stu obviously doesn't want it.
I definitely wouldn't want that. Like, it's pretty much
right. Okay.
The place I want them to go is somewhere in their division that isn't the Bengals.
Right. Okay, guys. I'm going to put us on the spot to wind up the pod tonight. We are going to rattle it round the room. I'm going to ask you for your predicted standings. Now, you can give me win-loss record if you wish. You can give me a straight 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you see your team making it into the postseason, how far do you reckon you are going to go? And you can be a dreamy fan, or you can be a cynical realist at your own choosing. Mikey, I will kick off with yourself, mate. What do you see your standings, and do you see a postseason for the Ravens?
Bloody alphabetical order. I knew you were coming first here. The weird thing is we had. I can't see us doing the kind of 13-4 net last year, number one seed types. I can't see it. A 12-5, maybe. I think we'll have a couple of just the way the travel works with us this year, and some are like Thursday night, and some of the games are just weird. I think we'll lose games where we shouldn't lose games, but we'll throw up eggs, right? So I think we will. So I think we'll be in the running for AFC North champs. It really depends. And sorry, Steelers and Browns, but I think they're a little bit away. But if Joey Burrow comes back, then I think they can do it. I mean, I think the benefit and the joy we have with the AFC North is it's shown all like 3 teams getting in playoffs last year from this division. If the Steelers had picked up a couple more wins, it would have been how did the league handle if all 4 of our teams have got winning records? It's like it's just crazy.
Has to bow down.
Correct, and so I think it's one of them that it's good to get the title of the AFC North champions, right, or King of the North and all that sort of thing, right? But fundamentally, I'm not sure I liked us being at home in the playoffs last year. It felt icky. I like us being the road and in our white jerseys and that. I think we'll probably get back to the championship game. It really depends on where we are, but yeah, maybe a 12-5 and get into the championship. But the way I see it is, Lamar has a point to prove, and he's done it every season where he just looked better and better. The big thing on his shoulder now is, can you win the big ones? And that's where it sits. So we'll wait and see. Henry might be that unlocking key that makes us. So we'll see. Right,
Stu, coming to you next. I'm going to come to Jimmy after this. I'll close this out. But yeah, I was going to alphabet again, Mikey. Stu, how do you see it going? How's the division going to shape up? And are your Bengals making the postseason?
Okay, I mean, I guess I did a quick kind of rundown before we started, and I tried to be realistic about it. You know, went through our schedule, and as you alluded to earlier on, because of us finishing 4th, we do have a slightly easier schedule, and that does help us. So
you're 17 low.
I tried to be realistic, and I gave us some losses or whatever in there as well. So I actually have us going. So what have I got here? Yeah, 11-6. But it's all down to Burrow health. I could see us being 9-8 if he's in.
I mean, but Burrow health gives you a 2-game swing.
we're not playing the maybe he'll be injured game. We'll just assume full health.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say 11-6, and I think honestly that'll probably put us second in the division in that case. So I have the Ravens finishing top. Sorry, Mike, I'm putting the expectation on you guys again, but I do think this could be another year where all four of us end up going above 500.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, one of us will miss the playoffs. I have not decided who it is. It's all down to which Deshaun Watson or Winston shows up as the starting QB. And for the Steelers, yeah, it's just kind of like, can Russell Wilson be old Russell or even 3/4 of old Russell Wilson? Or can Justin Fields be the Justin Fields we've seen flashes? If you get one of those things happening, Steelers will be great, kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
So it's down to that. So yeah, see us coming second and make the playoffs as a result.
Okay, Jimmy, what about yourself? How do you see the division shaping up? And do your Steelers do it this year?
I think, given the improved situation, the quarterback will go at least one game better than last year, if not two. So I'm going to go 12-5. There's a couple of trap games in there. For whatever reason, we always play down to the Chargers. Now we have them at home this year, which that might help a little bit, but that's kind of our trap game. The Colts I'm worried about with a healthy Anthony Richardson, and Dallas is a toss-up. And then just having like that run at the end of the season is just brutal. Where we have all our division games, plus the Eagles, plus Kansas City on Christmas Day. It's awful. I'm actually dreading that. I'm dreading from November on is going to be a nightmare. I'm not going to sleep. But I think 12-5. I do see us sneaking back into the postseason this year, and I hope to God we get further than the wild card round. So I'm going to be optimistic and go playoffs, divisional round. But I think that things are going to look up, but I think things are going to start getting better from here on. The Steelers might be finally out of the woods.
The thing you've got with that is if you do get that hard stretch in the run at Christmas, November, Christmas, you've seen what us last year. If you get up ahead of steam and you start playing good, then it just clicks. It clicks. How many teams we've seen it when December football comes around and they just look. I mean ultimately that's how the Kansas won they won last year because they picked up at that point in the season. I mean they played pretty simple games, I would say, but they still had to beat people.
Yeah, you're right.
There's no easy games in the NFL unless you're in Carolina. Right, for me, sorry, Panthers fans, you really are a terrible team. Right, okay. For me, I have a bit of a cop-out actually this year. I actually see the Bengals and Ravens tying the top of the division. I went through it and I did my bit. I went through all the games. Logged out. He's both on 12 wins. He's both sitting in 12. Don't know how that one will shake out in terms of who will actually take it. I've got Browns coming in with 11 wins, third, potentially making it into the postseason, potentially not. Wait to see how the league shakes out. Sorry, Jimmy. I see he's coming in at 9 wins this year. He's in at 9. Oof. And sorry, man. I think he's
that's awful.
Continues though, that's the main thing. As long as that streak keeps going,
I can't. I went through the Steelers actually more times than any of the other 3 teams. No, come on. Surely I can look at this in a way that puts him below 500. I genuinely just don't see it. But yeah, so I see if the Browns make it. The Browns are a big bag of question marks. If we make the postseason because we get multiple AFC North teams in again, like we did last year, it comes down to what we're doing in the postseason. Are we there by virtue of Watson, who's running a reasonable offense? If we are, with our defense, I can see us winning games and actually potentially going for a run in the playoffs. If we are there by virtue of things like Flacco that we had last year, and it was fun to watch, but we knew that game against the Texans was coming.
See if you'd have beat the Texans, do you think you would have thrown it in the next game?
Yeah, honestly, I loved watching Flacco play because he's a great quarterback to watch. Every game's a coin toss, though. He's either going to chuck 5 touchdowns or he's going to chuck 5 picks.
Yeah.
Which you throw, who knows? And it's the mistake.
He's the Marmite in our role, but he will always be the kind of like he has a hero status for me because of what he done for our franchise, and
he'll always entertain you. He'll always entertain somebody.
I mean, he doesn't know how to slide, but he's...
He doesn't. I'm not actually certain that his knees bend.
No.
Right. Okay. That brings us to the end of our preview of all things AFC North, chaps. So thank you all very much for joining us tonight. To everybody listening, thank you very much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the pod. Hope you enjoyed getting ready. It's close. I can taste it. Scott Hansen's on telly. Okay, he's doing the Olympics, but he's still on telly. So, it's getting closer. Now, remember, you can keep up with all things for the crew. We are going to have previews of every division coming up. We are going to have the news crews are going to be coming at you, and the season is closer and closer, and your regularly scheduled preview crew and review crews will be back, folks. Now, remember, you can find us on X at Grid Irn-Cru. You can find us on Insta, grid_iron_crew. Stick Grid Irn-Cru into YouTube, stick it into Spotify, stick it into Apple Podcasts, stick it in wherever you get your podcasts. Give us likes, give us subscribes. You help to grow the community. Only thing that's left for me to say is to run my way around the room. Stu, thank you very much for joining us tonight, mate. It's been great to get your input on all things Bengals.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was great chatting the North Division with the rest of you guys as well, and very nice to meet you both.
Yeah. Mikey, thank you very much for joining us and giving us all things Baltimore, mate. It's been great. We've not actually. You might be the first Ravens fan, or if you are, you're one of a short list of Ravens fans that we've had on the pod, mate. So it's been great to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Listen, I really appreciate it. Most of the guys that know me will know I like to talk, and this is a platform where if people want to listen, great. So I appreciate you inviting me. I love speaking football like the rest of the guys. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
And last but certainly by no means least, and I don't just mean the division standards. Jimmy, thank you.
You're gonna eat your words, Brian, about that 9-win.
I feel like I've been sticking it to Jimmy harder than I've said to anyone else. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us tonight, mate. It's been great to have you on to talk about Steelers.
Absolute pleasure, lads. I appreciate the opportunity. Like, just to echo what Mikey said. I can talk football for hours. So yeah, this has been great, and all the best.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And as we say to everybody listening, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next one.